Brown and Mark Gunderson and myself. All right.
You like us just take go on?
We'll get started, and other board members hopefully will still show up.
If not,
Okay.
It's being recorded.
Okay. Well, thank you for having us tonight to go over this audit report. There's kind of a whole lot of things going on with it, so I want to take some time to explain some of those to you. So first thing, yes, we have audited the financial statements for the year ended June 30, 2022, and we have issued our report on that. And this report has a lot of different parts to it. I'm going to kind of go a little out of order on it so that we can maybe get a better understanding. So the first thing to note is that these financial statements that we've audited are prepared on the what we call the modified cash basis of accounting. Previously, the district prepared financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. In discussion with district management, it was determined that, one, we might not be able to get everything we need for, gathered to have GAAP financial statements prepared. And two, GAAP financial statements will take longer to audit for us. And thirdly, the cash basis of accounting really does kind of make more sense for the district because you basically have, fairly, simple operations in terms of you don't have a lot of, other than your operation of the district in terms of personnel and costs, you don't have a lot of other stuff going on. So the first thing is you have to realize is the financial statements are presented on the modified cash basis of accounting, and that is noted in our auditor report that there's a change in the basis of accounting. And then when we looked at the actual financial statements on that modified basis of accounting, we as auditors are to come in and we are to obtain evidence that supports those amounts. The amounts may not change, but the question is, do we have support? Is there objective support we can obtain to, provide evidence that the amounts of the financial statements are correct? Well, with things going on right now, there's a whole lot of your payroll records that honestly weren't available to us to inspect to determine whether the amounts that were reported in the financial statements for payroll cost and related costs are correct. Doesn't mean that they're wrong in the financial statements, just means we didn't have the ability to gain any evidence to support them, to say whether those are right or not. So that's why we have some qualified opinions. And that you also have qualified opinions based upon various different opinion units. And that's kind of a strange term, I know, because you think, well, the financial statements are all together. But under governmental accounting, each of the individual columns basically they present in the financial statements are a separate opinion unit. And so we have various opinion units that, because they had payroll associated with them, we're issuing what we call a qualified opinion, which basically says, we just couldn't obtain sufficient evidence to say whether these are correct or not. Doesn't mean that they aren't correct. It just means the evidence wasn't there that we could look at to obtain that. So we have some that are qualified. The one that is unmodified is the Real Property Building and Reserve Fund, because that one didn't have any payroll related costs. So anyways, that's kind of, one of the big changes in here, along with the change in accounting basis. And the third item that kind of changes is, we looked in looking at the operations of the district, we realized, you have a pension fund. You have a fiduciary pension fund that was not previously reported in the financial statements, and that's for your LOSOP program, where it's still district. Its money's controlled by the district for the benefit of making future retirement payments to volunteers. So that's also been incorporated in these financial statements now. And that's another change from what we had before. So like I said, there's a lot of different things going on in the financial statements, but if you get, past all that, we can kind of talk about where you actually ended up with the year. So on the cash basis of accounting, what we're looking at is basically cash is the only asset, and it's modified basically for anything that is a liability arising from a cash transaction. In other words, there's some cash transaction that has occurred, and there's some sort of liability associated with that. Classic example for that is payroll, where you've paid the payroll, you've paid people's net pay, but you haven't yet at the end of the year remitted the associated payroll tax withholdings and payroll taxes of the district. So those are liabilities that kind of arose directly from a cash transaction, i.e. the payment of payroll to people. So those are the only things that are shown on the balance sheet, essentially. So you have cash of, at the end of the year, 3.6 million, total liabilities of 250,000. So your net position is $3.3 million at the end of the year. And on the modified cash basis of accounting, that is a pretty significant decrease from the prior year of about almost $1.4 million. Last year, you had, basically that net position on modified cash basis of 4.7 million, and this year you have 3.3. So you had a pretty significant decrease in that between the 2 years. Are there any questions on that so far? Because I want to make sure I'm answering any questions that you may have as we go through this.
So you said the prior year was 4 point something million?
4.7 million.
Yeah.
And that's, district-wide. Of course, that's broken up amongst various funds. But essentially, yeah, you had, cash less those, immediate liabilities that need to be paid due to the cash transactions of 4.7. This year you have 3.3. So definitely went down by a significant amount. And then, like I said, that's broken up into various funds. Of course, the most important fund in the district is the general fund. So the general fund ended the year with total cash of just about $3 million and 250,000 of liabilities. So your fund balance in the general fund was $2.8 million roughly, which is, once again, that's where the biggest decrease occurred, was in that general fund. That the general fund had a decrease in its fund balance of $1.4 million. Everything else was pretty much, even with, some give and take between them. But it was really the general fund where you had the biggest decrease. If you look at, though, on a budget to actual basis, there were a few items that were overexpended during the year. The materials and services, capital outlay and debt service, all of those appropriation categories were overexpended, even though your total expenditures were within your appropriations, but appropriations are done by various, categories of expenditures. But those three in the general fund were overexpended. So, overall, the budget, other than, those line items being overexpended with others not being overexpended, it was pretty much in line with your budget. But then you have to realize, your budget, you when you budgeted for the year ended, you're budgeting basically to have a zero fund balance in the general fund. So, having, $2.3 million as a fund balance when you're budgeted for zero is not bad. My suggestions always is you should, in the general fund, you should never be budgeting to a zero fund balance. You should always be looking at, you need to have some fund balance that carries over into the next year, because you're going to have expenditures that need to continue on. If you actually expend it down to zero, come July 1, you're going to have a hard time paying bills. particularly with the fact that, your big property tax revenues don't come in until November is when you get your large property tax turnovers. So I don't need to go through each and every fund here. They're all in the report unless you actually have any questions on them.
Brad,
Yes.
I'd like to add, because there might be some confusion with the general fund, the budgetary report here for the general fund, and then the general fund that reports into the governmental fund financial statements. You have two funds that qualify to be included with the general fund because they are not funded by an external source, and they're not a capital projects fund or a debt service fund. And so those have been combined with the general fund, and you'll find in your supplementary information the combining schedule for that. And those funds were
It's the two reserve funds for sick
yes,
leave,
it's your
retirement,
sick
and
leave
health
and your health
insurance.
insurance reserve funds. And so I just want to make sure that that's clear because there might be some unclarity there.
So then, following the basic statements is a long set of footnotes. A couple of them that I would point out is on page 16 of the report, which is your cash and investments. So at the end of the year, you'll see where your cash was held. It's mainly at the local government investment pool. 2.9 million of your total cash is there. And then the other item I would like to point out is on page 18, your long-term debt obligations. And this is something that may look a little different from the prior because, like I said, these are on the modified cash basis. And so the long-term debt obligations don't appear on the financial statements themselves. But because they are an obligation for future cash outflows by the district, we show them here as the long-term debt that's outstanding. So you'll see that you have $2.2 million of long-term debt outstanding with just under $200,000 due within the next 12 months after June 30, 2022. So that'd be in the year ended June 30, 2023, that those would be expected to be paid. And then there's a very long footnote related to your participation in Oregon PERS. The Oregon PERS liability does not show up here on the long-term debt obligations, because if you think about it, that's the amounts that were previously reported were based upon actuarial estimates that don't directly relate to cash transactions or future cash outflows. Your future cash outflows will actually be, for the district, what you pay in terms of PERS contributions. And that's, of course, dependent upon how much your payroll is and your contribution rate. So those are not shown there, but we do have a disclosure in here that talks about your participation in PERS and what, your contributions were and how they were based, on the actuarial information. And then, of course, there's also the PERS portion for the health insurance account for retirees, which is fairly immaterial for your district. And then following the footnotes, there are those combining statements and other budgetary schedules. I'm not going to go over those in detail unless you have any specific questions on them. So I'd have you go towards the very end of the document to our report under the requirements of Oregon state regulations. So besides auditing the financial statements themselves, we are required to perform additional procedures on two areas. One, compliance with specific Oregon laws and regulations. So we performed those tests and we did identify several issues related to budgeting.
It's on the page, sorry, 43 in the booklet.
Yes, that's on page 44. It starts on page 43 and then goes on to 44 and 45. So we had quite a few items that were um, regarding the budgetary process. Some things that just were not available to us in terms of what was there available in terms of documentation. And so that's in the process. And then of course there were those items that were overexpended. I already detailed those out in the general fund, but there were some other categories that were also overexpended. And one of the other things, because you have as much money you do have in the state and local investment pool, there's a requirement that you notify the state of Oregon about other depositories, because they want to make sure that the state treasurer operates this program that collateralizes the additional deposits in financial institutions outside the local government investment pool. And by notifying them of where you have those deposits, that will mean that those the amounts at the bank that are not covered by FDI insurance will be covered by that collateral pool. So that's one of those important things that does need to happen every year. And they do have they send an email, and so that's one of the things we immediately talked about is you should be in contact with Oregon State Treasurer's Office to provide them that information. And then finally, we did note under the requirements of ORS 279 public contracting, there were two items where you either didn't obtain the 3 price quotes as required, or you didn't follow competitive bid process for procurement over $150,000. So we had some findings there under Oregon minimum standards. And then the other thing we look at is internal controls. We have a very short paragraph that talks about internal controls. And that's one of the things as auditors that we do is in part of every audit, we consider an entity's internal controls. And we do that for several reasons, mainly to help us plan our audit, to identify areas where there may be weaknesses in internal controls that we have to dive in deeper to make sure we have sufficient evidence if the internal controls are weak. But also in the event that we have identified any weaknesses or significant deficiencies that we want to bring to your attention, we communicate those in a separate letter, which you've also issued to you. So do you have any questions on the actual audit report for myself? So here with me tonight is Kathy Wilson, who is kind of the person on the ground there on the audit, and as well as Carly Dossman, who was a member of the audit staff. I know there's a lot of information in a short amount of time.
Can I ask a question, sir? So if
Sure.
as they review this, if they have questions, can they submit them to either you directly or to Chief Sanchez, and we can forward them to you? So if you guys look at them when you get home later or this weekend and you're like, hey, I've got a question on page 39, you guys can send it and then they can answer it. It is a lot of information to digest.
Yeah.
Are aware of there's a number of issues that have been already corrected and dealt with because of stuff that's been identified in the audit.
Right. Yeah. The good news is, we came into this knowing that, probably it would not be the cleanest audit we've ever done. And obviously it's not. But I believe, right now we have good beginning balances to go forward into your June 30, 23 audit. Which is kind of, what we were, when we first started talking to Jimmy about this is, really want to get the district up, current with their audit reports as quickly as possible, and felt like, we could do this audit, get it done, and then move on to 23, and hopefully that will be better. I'm still going to expect some issues, but I feel like you have the district now at a good place to start going forward on a positive manner.
And so I'd like to echo that. So one of the things that, as a board, and I talked to Mark as he came in a little earlier, is that you guys, we're gonna have 3 audits in the span of 6 months. So you're, I mean, clearly we're behind. So you're gonna see one. Obviously they're doing the currently is 22, 23 will be the next one. And so as they, hopefully you're gonna see improvement. We believe we're gonna see improvement, and you're gonna see more improvement when they do one this fall, which will be our 23, 24. So you'll have 3 in a 6-month span to compare. You'll have probably lots of questions for them, because where we started to where we ended up, and hopefully everybody's feeling a lot better about it as we move forward. So I really do appreciate everything you guys have done working with us. And again, I hope your next the next budget hearing or meeting we have, and the audit, they will be able to review it and give you guys some positive stuff. We also anticipate there's still probably some minor things, but we're hoping, again, we're on an upward trend.
Right. Yeah. So, and I would say, yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to either email myself or Kathy Wilson directly. Be happy to answer those questions, or if you want to run through Jimmy, that's fine too. But yeah, we are here available to you to answer your questions. And that's one of the things, we always tell our people, our clients is, throughout the year, if you have questions, contact us. We'd rather deal with questions as they come up during the year or anytime they're coming up, so we can, respond quickly, get you the information you need to move forward. So yes, I'd invite, if you have questions, feel free to contact us directly. And I do want to thank, the district staff there to help us in our in the audit. I mean, everybody kind of knew this was going to be tough. Everybody did the best they could with everything going on. So I do want to say, thank you to the staff for helping us through this process. And, like I said, we're happy to work with the district to move things forward in a positive manner.
I appreciate that. And I want to say that they actually, not only do they have access to our systems, and we're adding another access to somebody, they have access to Financial Edge software now. They also they show up in person and they come and they go through our files. So it's not, there is no disconnect. They come sit in the conference room. The first one they were there, you were there 4 days, 5 days, 5 days? Or 4 days?
I think
I can't
4.
hear you. 4 days?
Was it 4 days? Yes. And just to clarify that's a read-only access, not so we can get in and change anything.
Yes. Yeah, well,
We don't want to impair our independence.
this is true. And that's all logged electronically too. That can be proven. So that has nothing to do with our logs. That's just the program, the software. But moving forward, this has been a true look, and they continue to do that. They're coming again at the end of this month. They will be here for 4 days again, live and in person. They have access to the files. They go into our computers, whatever they need. They stand there and they verify too. So I recommend keep, doing that forever, based off of past practice where that wasn't happening. I think that's where some of this disconnect has, where stuff has been missing. So thank you guys for that, by the way.
I have one question. Page 45. Very last paragraph, restrictions on use. It says that this report is intended solely for information and use of the Board of Directors and management of Clackamas County Fire District 1. And Oregon Secretary of State, none is intended to be or should not be used by anyone other than.
Okay, there's a typo there.
Sorry. We'll get that page reissued.
We'll get that page fixed. Yeah,
Yeah.
I apologize for that. Yeah, we do some cutting and pasting when we're doing these reports.
That's the legal letter. They should have changed the Columbia River Fires.
Oh, I don't. I caught it.
Yeah.
We start right there.
I appreciate that. Sorry.
It
Yeah.
happens.
We
So, yeah,
hope all
so
of those
we'll-
things get caught before we issue.
Good.
And just, so you recognize the fact that, internally, this document has been looked at by no less than 5 people internal to our firm, plus district staff. So, it's amazing how, collectively we can all miss something like that.
Yes. And my brain
So-
probably sent it right to Columbia River, and I didn't just skip right over it.
Paul, we have a hard copy. Would you like me to drop it off? You're muted, Paul.
There we go. Yeah, that'd be great. If you don't mind, Eric.
Okay, so I can do that for him.
Yeah.
Great. Any other questions, gentlemen?
I'll have to go through it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
It takes a long time, but.
it does. It's about 45 pages. So, if you guys have questions for us that if we can't answer, or we can send it to them, or you guys can just forward the message to them.
Yep.
And answer you guys directly. So we do appreciate you guys' time again tonight, and thank you. And, I'm sure our board, once they get done looking through this packet, will probably have some additional questions.
Yeah, we'll be happy to answer them. And, we look forward to moving forward to 23 now.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having us.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
So do we need to approve anything tonight or this was just?
No, this isn't just info, so it's information. And the next one hopefully will be sometime this fall. So we're hoping, if they're coming here at the end of the month, hopefully this will be shorter, not 3 or 4 months before you guys get it. So we're hoping maybe October-ish, we have another meeting. And then the final one for 23, 24.
Hoping
They're
to
due.
be done before December 31st, because that's the.
And then we can meet maybe in January-ish, and then that way you guys have a tier approach, hopefully seeing that we're going back to the light, not away from it, so. But I do appreciate you guys coming in a couple times this month already, so thank you, gentlemen, appreciate it. Hopefully Ryan is okay. He was out on the river and he's supposed to be here, so hopefully nothing bad
We
happened.
didn't hear any calls.
No, yeah, no one got called for water rescue, so at least we know he didn't probably didn't sink.
Can you blame him for not coming in?
No, he told us.
Out on the river on a day like this?
I totally understand.
All right. Do you have any comments, Paul?
No. I finally figured out how to get on the meeting.
Yeah. Well, we started on my computer and then I saw you
Yeah.
bridge.
Yep, I got it all downloaded and set up.
Thanks for being here.
All right.
Yeah.
Do you have any comments?
I don't, I'm gonna, this is gonna be a difficult one for me,
Yeah.
no numbers guy.
Do you have any comments, Austin?
No, sorry, I'm feeling late.
Great, bro.
Glad to see this one done. I'll take some time to digest it.
You're gonna see the biggest takeaways, like he said, was you're gonna see it went from 4.7 to 3. You're looking at the
Mhm.
fund balance, the general fund balance. You're gonna see that there's a drastic drop. Which explains where that over 1 million goes, and they were able to identify that. The manager report I sent you guys electronically as well. He happened to sign it with President Welby before, so they saw it beforehand. But I sent you a manager report just now during this meeting electronic as well, if you want that. You can read over that. That identifies a lot of the stuff that he, didn't say necessarily, probably, but it's in writing for you too, so.
Okay. Good morning.
Okay,
Motion, or we'll close the meeting at 18:31.
thank you, gentlemen. Hey, thanks for coming in.
Yeah,
How was
Thank you for
training?
coming.
That was good.
Good.
I was ventilation. No, we got a couple of inches.
So that's that. So, when you fired it up at some point, did Jeff come outside to hear the chainsaw and you had you out there?
No.
No?
Over there.
Oh, okay.